Hello, I hope you're doing well and that you're ready for this 2021 bullet journaling setup. I almost said 2020. That would be bad. We definitely don't want to repeat 2020, so I'll try to control myself, but if I say 2020 during the video instead of 2021, forgive me. Before we get much further, let me just show you some of the supplies that I'm going to be using for this video. I definitely forgot a few, and some of the ones I'm showing you I won't actually be using, but this is most of them. As you can see, a lot of the supplies I'm using are actually blue, and that's just because I wanted to have a blue theme this year to match my brand new blue journal. This is actually the first time that I'm using a colorful journal since all the ones before that were neutral, and I'm really excited about that, and I sort of wanted to celebrate it with a blue theme. I generally prefer a more scrapbook style of bullet journaling, so I'll be using that for this setup since I wanted to go for my favorite style, since, well, it's a brand new journal, and I'm going to be staring at it for the rest of the year. So here I'm starting my spread in the usual way by tearing up some pretty papers and arranging them in a way that I like. And this spread is going to be my cover page for this journal, so the only thing that's going to be on it is Hello 2021. It's not really a useful spread, but I still wanted to have it, to get me excited for the brand new year and to, well, help me leave 2020 behind. Some other great options for a first spread are, for example, a key spread, which I know a lot of people use, but I actually decided not to include one this year, just because I don't really use any complicated symbols. Whenever I write down my tasks for my weekly spreads, I pretty much just write them as bullet points and then I put a check mark next to the ones that I already completed, so for me a key is pretty much useless, but it's a great spread if you're into that. Another good option is a This Journal Belongs To spread, and I did that last year and it was fun, but I don't know, for some reason I just didn't feel like starting with it this year. Once I had my Hello 2021 down on the spread, it was time to decorate it just a little bit. And for that, I used one of these blue feathery stickers, and I'll definitely be using them for the rest of the setup because I really like how they look with my blue theme. And I also added some blue star doodles all around the spread in my sparkly gel pen, just to make things a little bit more interesting and to add a little bit of extra sparkle, which if you have seen any of my other videos, you know that I really love sparkly things. And the final touch was outlining 2021 in the same blue gel pen, just to make it stand out a little bit more against the black. For my second spread, I'm starting with this sort of dreamy blue photo. And this is actually one of many photos that I sized and had printed out in my local photo center, specifically so I could use them in my journal. If you have a colored printer, then you really don't need to do that, but if you have no printer or only a black and white printer, then you might consider doing that for your bullet journal too, to give yourself a little bit more variety, if you do like to add photos to your journal, that is. Here I'm again using some pretty blue papers to frame the photo and to add, sort of randomly but with purpose I guess, around the spread to make things a little bit more interesting. I also added these blue dots, which are actually sticky notes, but I think they work really well for decorating a spread. And my favorite part would have to be adding in a little bit of blue washi tape. I don't know why, there's just something about washi tape that I really enjoy using. Now this spread is a looking forward to and a long-term goals spread. The looking forward to section is pretty much a section for me to write down all the things that I'm looking forward to in 2021. And I've been adding these looking forward to sections to my monthly spreads for a while, and I find that it actually really helps me to get excited for the upcoming month. And so I thought that it would be a great idea to add it for the year to, well, get excited for the upcoming year, especially since I think could all use some extra excitement after the kind of disaster that 2020 has been. And I finished off the spread with some dreamy blue stickers to match the dreamy theme of the photo. My third spread is a short-term goals and dreams spread. And when I say short-term, I actually mean goals for 2021. I guess that's not really short-term, only short-term when you compare it to the 5 and 10-year goals that I had for the previous spread. I'm adding this spread because I think that while it can be really helpful to write down your goals, it can also be really helpful to write down your dreams. First of all, it kind of puts you into a more positive mindset, or at least it does that for me. And second, it can be a really incredible feeling to come back to a spread like this later on and to realize that something that you only dreamed of actually came true and became a reality. And as you can see, I'm decorating this spread in my usual scrapbooky way, and I'm actually using all of the same papers that I used on my cover page, so I'm kind of sticking to the same theme here. And of course, I couldn't leave this spread without adding some washi tape. Did I mention I really like washi tape? There's actually a funny story here. I started bullet journaling because of washi tape. Sort of. I stumbled onto a random Etsy seller selling washi tape online, and I really liked the idea of it, but I had no idea what to use it for, so I started Googling ideas for how to use washi tape, and the only thing that actually appealed to me was the idea of a bullet journal, so I started down the rabbit hole of Googling that. And I realized that I actually really need bullet journaling in my life, and here I am. With a much larger washi tape collection than I thought I would have, and a brand new bullet journal, because it actually is very helpful. For this next spread, I'm using a lot of the same papers again, but this time I'm sticking them all around the middle. And I usually put things on the sides and on the corners, just because it kind of tends to work out better that way, but I wanted to have a little bit of a change for this spread, so I decided to go for the middle and hope for the best. And I actually really liked how it came out, but I thought that the black paper was a little bit too plain just sitting there in the middle of my spread, so I decided to add some more blue starry doodles in what I think is the same color gel pen. I've lost track of that one, so I'm no longer sure, but I think it was. As for what the spread is actually about, well, it's a good things about me and things I want to change spread. I haven't seen too many people adding these types of spreads to their bullet journals, especially for their yearly setups, but I think it actually goes really well with the whole idea of planning for the year. While it probably would have been more helpful in terms of planning to only keep the things I want to change portion, I really wanted to add the good things as well, because I tend to spiral into negative thinking pretty easily, and while the things I want to change portion is very helpful for planning, it's sort of a more negative spread, and I thought that it would be very helpful to counteract that with something more positive. Now that I think about it, I'm probably going to be filling out this spread before I fill out my goals spread, and I probably should have put this spread earlier in the setup, but hindsight is 2020 and there's nothing I can do about it now except accept and move on. So I'm not sure if the book-themed papers actually gave it away, but this next spread is going to be a reading tracker spread, or a book thread spread as I like to call it. And I'm actually going to have 3 of them. And there are several reasons for that. I know that most people tend to stick to only one reading tracker spread, but my writing tends to be on the larger side, and there's just no way that I can fit all the books on one spread. I actually had to get up to double check this, but I currently finished 50 books, which is a strangely even but rather satisfying number for me to be able to say during this voiceover. And that pretty much filled out 3 spreads. If I try really hard, I think I might be able to squeeze in 60, considering the fact that 2020 was sort of an odd year when I got through more books than I usually do. I think that 3 spreads will do rather nicely. As you can see, I actually decorated the spread in a very similar way to how I decorated most of my other spreads, with some sparkly blue paper, which I really enjoy using, some of those blue watercolor looking dots, and some feathers. So, as you probably realized from what I've already said, this next spread is going to be another reading tracker. But this is actually another spread that I organized around this photo, and I don't know why this photo made me think of books. It just feels very dreamy and a little bit fantasy themed to me, although I'm pretty sure that it's a real city, even though I've never been there. But I don't know, it just felt like it could be a scene in a book for some reason. Of course, I couldn't stay away from my favorite washi tape, and I thought that the color scheme of this wider washi tape actually went really well with the grayed out colors of the photo. And I also added this sort of fantasy themed blue castle washi, again because it matched the blue color scheme, and because, well, a fantasy theme just feels really appropriate for a book spread, possibly because fantasy is actually my favorite genre of books. A big part of it is probably escapism, but it is what it is, I can't help it, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to want to escape a little bit from your everyday life and go on grand adventures with your favorite characters. And sadly, or possibly happily, depending on whether or not you're enjoying this video, we have reached the last spread, and yes, it is another book tracker. By the way, a lot of the books I get through I don't actually read, I listen to them as audiobooks. And this actually helps me get through a lot more books than I would be able to otherwise. And I really love books, so discovering audiobooks actually made me quite a bit happier, since I found that I just didn't have as much time to read as I would have liked. And yes, there's definitely nothing quite like the feeling of curling up with a good book, but audiobooks are a close second. As for how I decorated the spread, I used a lot of the same things that I used for my previous spreads in this setup, just because I wanted to carry my theme all the way through. And I'm actually kind of surprised at myself that I managed to do it. This is the first time that I carried a theme through an entire bullet journaling setup, so yay! And my final touch for the spread were these blue stickers with a little bit of gold foiling to them. So I have to be honest here, when I had only 2 stickers left on the sheet, I sort of felt like the spread was done, but I also really wanted to finish my sticker sheet. I don't know why, but I just have this thing where I really like finishing bullet journaling supplies. It's strange, I know, I don't know. Comment below if you know the feeling I'm talking about. Anyways, I just had to finish the sticker sheet, so I ended up adding the other 2 stickers as well. So as I said, that was the last spread, and now we're going to do a flip through of all the spreads that I've been setting up during this video. I did try to keep things a little bit simpler for this setup, just because I wanted to leave myself a lot of room to write and fill in those spreads. I know that sometimes with my weekly or monthly spreads, I get really carried away with just piling things on, and I end up with just tiny spaces where I can write, and that's not really good for a yearly setup, so I definitely tried to avoid that. And for probably the first time ever, I'm actually really happy with how every single spread came out, and I really like how they all look together. Although I have to say my favorites are probably my long-term goals spreads and my last 2 book spreads. Let me know which spread was your favorite. I'd really love to know. And I'm also really curious to know if you have a bullet journal too. And if you do, if you have a particular theme in mind for the year. I didn't actually stick to a theme in my last year's setup, so I'm curious about how you feel about sticking to a specific theme. Otherwise, that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have an amazing year, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!